Got the saddest feeling nowadays that all my dreams are much too far away. Sometimes the nights got me aching, working hours in the cold. And I can't imagine how it feels to end up where you feel you had to go. I've been lost, starving, praying nothing else will go wrong. I guess
Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. How are y'all tonight? Ooh, I was just watching some more Letter Hack. I gotta tell you, I enjoy very much hanging out in the crowd, and I enjoy seeing you guys there. I saw a bunch of Wicked regulars hanging out in the Letter Hacks chat. Man, ooh, I think we're building something. Good. This is, for now, this is our answer to the right-wing astroturf. It's to plant actual seeds. Speaking of, if you are enjoying the fruits of nature, as I see some folks are, kudos, and I'm jealous. Let's say hi to folks. Pinkerbell, good to see ya. Wicked Foxy Dragon, hello. I don't know why. There it is. Rustbox, hello. Christy Z, delighted to have you, man. All right, I want to get to the news. It's interesting news. It's stuff I've been hoping we'd get a chance to talk about because it's necessary for little things like preserving democracy. Let's talk about folks flipping like flapjacks. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's happening. One thing that I think is important to keep in mind, if you are the sort of person who is willing to work for Donald Trump, odds are you don't get your information, which gives you a very clear picture of how he treats his employees. He doesn't have friends. He has people that are obligated to him in some way. So, if you're somebody like, say, Yusel Taveras, you perhaps only get your information from Fox News, and it might have come as a shock to Yusel Taveras to learn exactly how much the government already knows. That is my working theory for this news brought to us by an animated Just for Men commercial, Wolf Blitzer.
News in the federal classified documents case down in Florida. One of the key players has just flipped against former President Trump and is now cooperating with the special counsel Jack Smith's office. That, according to the former defense attorney for Mar-a-Lago IT worker Yusel Taveras, who says Taveras has agreed to testify in the case, and in exchange, he will not, repeat, not be prosecuted. Both Taveras and Carlos de la Vieira, the club's property manager, were initially suspected of giving false testimony after denying allegations that they tried to erase incriminating security camera footage. Taveras has not yet been charged. This filing, by the way, marks the first public acknowledgement that the special counsel, Jack Smith, has won the cooperation of a key witness in this case against Trump, his longtime valet, Walt Nauta, and Carlos de Oliveira. Our panel is back with me. Paula, you've been covering this for a while. So what does this mean?
All right, before we get to the panel, I just want to jump in with what I think it means. I think it means that these people suddenly realize, oh, this is a real criminal prosecution. All that Fox I've been watching has been lying. This is not a show trial. This is not Democrats making up something and then go into court. No. The Democrats aren't involved. This is the Department of Justice. And what the Democrats were talking about back when they used the powers that they actually do have to have the January 6th committee, et cetera, unlike the Republicans, they aren't lying. They aren't lying. Republicans have basically just ceded reality to anybody who cares to take it as a forum. They know that Republicans only deal in fantasy land. So these folks who are Trump allies, either they're the sort of people who know what Trump's up to, they know what a liar he is, and they don't care, and they're rolling them bones because they think they'll profit. Or they're people that don't follow this stuff all too closely. And what they do follow, they get from flawed sources, such as Trump himself, Trump's staff, or Fox or OAN, etc. And those who have decided that they can skirt the law as long as they're alongside Trump are now learning that they can't. And Trump is going to have a harder and harder time stopping people from flipping on him. Because when one person flips, everybody who didn't is a lot worse off. And it makes it more and more likely that more and more people will flip.
For the special counsel's case.
Well, as you just said, this is significant because this is the first acknowledgement the special counsel has secured the cooperation of a key witness. Mr. Tavares, he oversaw the security footage at Mar-a-Lago. We know the security, the surveillance footage is a key part of this case because there are allegations that there were efforts to destroy it or at least conceal it. So we've also learned that one of the things that prompted this cooperation deal was the threat of prosecution. He was threatened with possibly being prosecuted. So in exchange for not facing charges, he has agreed to testify in this case. And that's interesting because we also know Walt Nauta, the former president's co-defendant, also faced the threat of prosecution, but he did not flip, which is part of how he became the former president's co-defendant. Now, one other thing that's going to complicate this is Walt Nauta and Mr. Tavares were at one time represented by the same person, Stan Woodward. He is a frequent character. In this case, he represents a lot of people. He is paid by a Trump-aligned political action committee. So once Yuscil Tavares decided to sort of change the story that he was giving prosecutors, agree to cooperate, right before that, he changed lawyers. So he is no longer represented by Stan Woodward, but it could still be an issue, particularly if he was to testify at trial. He could possibly be cross-examined by his previous lawyer. So that's something.
Remember the name, Stan Woodward. There is a reason that House attorneys gotta go. It's because it's inherently corrupt. It's because of the very thing we're dealing with right now. Let's be clear, you are allowed, if you are the sort of person who's able to buy attorneys for other people, you are allowed to buy an attorney for whoever you want. But long term, we ought to put rules in place that govern that a lot more strictly. Because as Donald Trump is demonstrating for us, that is a loophole that exists in our system that allows you to silence witnesses.
Something that the judge is seeking briefings on. That's something they're going to have
coercion.
to work out. But it is a significant development in the Mar-a-Lago docs case.
Very significant. And a lot of the information, Laura, as you and I know, because we just read it, came in this document that has just been released, the United States District Court, Southern District of Florida, West Palm Beach Division, United States of America versus Donald J. Trump and Walt Nauta. And we get a lot of information of there. How significant is this new revelation as far as Trump specifically in the classified documents is concerned?
Well, it's very significant. Remember, this is a person, as we learned from the initial indictment, that somebody went to him under the advice or the direction of the former president to tell him what to do about the footage. And so this could be someone to tell us what that conversation was actually like. Remember, we're still looking and trying to piece together the pieces, unlike Jack Smith's team, who most assuredly must know before indicting this person in Mar-a-Lago, what specifically was said? What was the direction given? What is the corroborating evidence you have to support it to bring an indictment, let alone prove it at trial? Having a key witness, having somebody who is essentially going to tell you what came from the proverbial horse's mouth is immeasurably important in any prosecution. So knowing there's actually a cooperator means that if you do not continue to cooperate, then that indictment for yourself could also be looming. So this person has every incentive to be truthful, has every incentive to make sure they remain credible, and to be forthcoming with anything else that might happen. I have to scratch my head as well and wonder, clearly the identity of this person was known to Donald Trump and Walt Nada and, of course, Carlos de Oliveira as likely as well. Have any of the conversations surrounding potential intimidation or the identity of witnesses, have they been identifying particular people or not? Is that part of why Jack Smith's team now wants it to be known there is a cooperator? Because up till now, we haven't heard a lot about them, maybe for that very reason.
To publicly...
Yeah, just going to say, great question.
make clear that
a
shield to make clear to the former president, back off on him. I mean, it is so interesting, and Sarah has covered so much of Donald Trump politically, legally, and everything in between, that his MO, and we've seen this, the most famous or infamous example has been Michael Cohen, is to keep people who know things and potentially know things as close as he possibly can. This one got away.
Right.
And this is somebody who has the potential to know a lot, has to know a lot.
Dana Bash. I knew I was going to have somebody I could butt heads with a little bit. She could be right, but this chunk is for opinion, so I'm going to give my chunky opinion. I think he's just running out of money. I mean, I don't have proof of this, and there's nothing that makes it. This is just a gut feeling, really, and there's nothing that makes it a more valuable opinion than Ms. Bash's. But why do we think of Trump as a billionaire? Even if it's because that's what his taxes say, it's self-reported. And how much did he pay in taxes? What, $780 most years? So it's not like by saying he's a billionaire, he has to pay any more money. So why not just say he's a trillionaire? He's a, fill in the blank with whatever insanity. He behaves in a way that, to me, seems like a person who's running out of money, including taking risks that if you had a lot of money, you would probably not choose to take. The strategy only makes sense if you are being very cautious about mounting legal expenses. If I were Trump, everybody, and I knew that you could get away with having house attorneys. Everybody I had ever shaken a hand with would have an attorney paid for by Trump. So I think that is the explanation there. But regardless, maybe he did. Maybe this person didn't have a law degree and didn't drive a fancy car, and so Trump didn't think it was a person.
Or else the prosecutor wouldn't have given him a deal.
And I think we should note that we aren't learning this because Jack Smith necessarily wanted to share this with us. We're learning about it because there is this dispute about Stanley Woodward, the attorney at the center, whether there's a conflict involving him. And that's how this is coming up in these filings, is to sort of note that now there is this cooperation agreement for Yuscil Taveras, that before, according to Stan Woodward at least, that this was not a cooperation deal that was on the table when he was representing Taveras. But I think Dana, to your point, Trump has been able to keep a lot of people in the fold, in this case, who do have a lot to lose. People like Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira, who are now charged as part of this case. So to see Yuscil Taveras break away and get his own attorney and move away again from sort of the cushiness of the Trump PAC-funded lawyers and outside of that circle, it's not something we see very often.
Very quickly, this is the nightmare for Trump, that some of his co-defendants will begin to cooperate against him.
Of course, and to Dana's point, I've learned that after what happened with Michael Cohen, of course, he flipped very publicly on the former president. The former president has been much more careful about trying to keep people in the fold.
Oh, brutal. Trying to keep people in the fold is what she was saying. Yeah, he's been trying, but he hasn't had the budget to pull it off. That's my theory. But what does this mean long term? You're going to see more and more of this. It is a sign that what we pretty much thought was true is likely to be true, about the strength of the case, about the weight of the evidence. It says a hell of a lot when about how high that diving board is when the kids get to the top and hesitate, want to climb back down the ladder. Yuscil Taveras, he's in the ladder club. He's not jumping off. It's belly flop city, Taveras. Smart move. And look what happened. If you're a Trump supporter, look what happened. Yuscil Taveras, excuse me, if you're a Trump co-defendant or in danger of being a co-defendant, look at the two paths ahead of you. Yuscil Taveras gets his own attorney, agrees to be a lawful citizen, charges dropped. Ivanka Trump gets her own attorney, doesn't get dragged into this stuff. Who else is going to get an attorney and that is not paid for by Trump and then will turn around and no longer be Trump's accomplice? I have a feeling the list is going to end up being a hell of a lot longer than it currently is. Let's see what the wicked community has to say. Ooh, mercy me. The anti-corporatists. Hello there. I had my fifth wheel break on me last night, so I spent the night at the truck stop in Ontario, and I'm only just now getting to Las Vegas. Heck, I'm not even in Las Vegas yet. I'm in Jean. Dang it. Or heck, I'm not even in Las Vegas yet. I'm in Jean. Well, listen, I hope you at least did the traditional watching of that scene from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That's the proper way, in my opinion, to enter that city. My dogs are goth. That sounds like a fun adventure. Anti-corporatist, be safe. It sucks. Yeah. Wicked Foxy Dragon. If you hadn't already, hit that thumbs up button. Much appreciated. The anti-corporatist, I'm really beginning to have a love-hate relationship with the voice-to-text feature. That's fair. Public utility, anyone with a sense of self-preservation in reference to the attorneys. Yes, indeed. Hey, speaking of. Oh, wait, Donald James. Trump basically has thrown everybody under the bus. Now he's the one being thrown. Yes. Yes, indeed. And Del Ortiz, hello to you. My dogs are goth. You must not mean Ontario, Canada. That's probably the case. I'm assuming that's the case. Although, anti-corporatist, if I'm not mistaken, is long haul. You drive quite a ways. So I can't answer for you, brother. Sort of, speaking of. September is going to be a weird month. It's our designated weird month. Things are just going to be bizarre for the What You Can Do, the Wicked community and the show, What You Can Do. We're going to do a call-in show following the commentary part of the program tonight. So if you are interested in calling in, just understand there's going to be another stream after this one wherein we're going to attempt another call-in show. Topic of conversation, anything we talked about tonight or whatever's on your mind. We're going to do Majority Report and David Pakman rules. Have a question or comment ready. Call on in. You don't have to use your camera if you don't want to, but you can. And I'm just going to put the link to calling into the show right in the chat. Just straight up into the chat. And if the line fills up immediately, we'll roll with it after that. We'll take the first calls and then figure out an adequate way to continue. And it might just crash the whole stream regardless. So as I said, it's brace yourselves for weirdness, but it's in pursuit of improving the show. Do we want the Brian Tyler Cohen news, or can we skip that? Oh, what the hell? We're gonna do it so fast. A little bit more news before we get into what you can do. Because, folks, today we're going to help the trans folks. If you're not trans yourself, it's a good day to be an ally. If you are a trans person, we have advice specifically for you. And I hope you'll enjoy it. But before we get to that, I do want to keep dancing on the grave of Trump's freedom, because if anybody has earned our collective ire, it is that fucking Tang-looking Mussolini. Good God. Nope, that's not what I meant to do. Let's take another whack at that, huh? Great. Hey, there we go. Got one more for you here on the front of people flipping on Trump, and I'm not even going to do a whole song and dance. Look, you know who it is. It's fine-ass Brian Tyler Cohen. Let's break it down.
About co-defendants and witnesses flipping on Trump, but this latest news is hands down his worst yet. Politico is now reporting that Mark Meadows, Trump's former chief of staff, has just signaled that his defense will likely include blaming Donald Trump as the driving force behind efforts to steal the 2020 election. Now, if Meadows does ultimately decide to throw Trump under the bus, it'll make him the highest profile cooperator to turn on his former boss thus far. In court, Meadows' attorney downplayed his client's culpability by pointing out that he never called on the Georgia Secretary of State to change the vote totals. During cross-examination with Brad Raffensperger, Meadows' lawyer asked, "He didn't make a request that you change the vote totals, Mr. Meadow himself," to which Raffensperger replied, "Correct." And of course, a question like that only underscores the fact that Donald Trump did in fact make that request.
God damn. Mark Meadows was Trump's chief of staff. For context, if you don't recall. Most of you probably do, because we've talked about him extensively, but not for a long time. Meadows was Trump's chief of staff. That's the guy in the White House who orchestrates everything, who puts complicated strategies together. So if the person who's saying, you go here and do this, you go there and do that, if they're saying, wasn't my idea, it can basically only come from one other person. He can't turn and say, like, well, listen, Rudy told me to. Who the is Rudy to you? No one. That's huge. I will also say, even I can't take credit for predicting that well before I was saying, ooh, do you think? Ooh, do you think? David Feldman was saying, Meadows is a coward. There's no way Meadows does anything except turn on Trump. You guys in the chat, before I was saying, I wonder, you guys were asking the question. And here's your answer. It would seem. Let's let fine-ass Brian Tyler Cohen keep breaking it down.
Meadows also signaled his intention to dump Trump again during cross-examination. He was explaining that Trump viewed the fake elector scheme as critical to his strategy of staying in power, and so he needed to line up those slates of electors. Meadows said, "What I didn't want to happen was for the campaign to prevail in court action and not have this lined up." When asked why, Meadows responded, "Because I knew I'd be yelled at by the President of the United States." Again, not exactly something you say in court if your intention is to protect the guy who you just blamed, making it
Wasn't yelled at by Trump's attorney. Wasn't yelled at by Eastman. Wasn't yelled at by the person making pizza down the street. Nope. POTUS. That he's describing what a coup feels like when you're part of it.
pretty clear that Meadows views his way out of this as stepping on Donald Trump. And of course, it's not just Mark Meadows. 3 of the fake electors also asserted in court that they acted on Trump's behalf, signaling that they're likely to throw Trump under the bus to save themselves. The attorney for one of those electors, Sean Still, now a state senator, wrote in a filing, Mr. Still, as a presidential elector, was also acting at the direction of the incumbent president of the United States. The president's attorneys instructed Mr. Still and the other contingent electors that they had to meet and cast their ballots on December 14, 2020. An attorney for another fake elector, Kathleen Latham, submitted a filing that she acted at the direction of the President of the United States. And keep in mind, that case hasn't even started in earnest yet, and 3 people are already opting to turn on Trump. And a number of the remaining co-defendants in that case who've been indicted in Fulton County don't have the benefit of some national following that they can leverage to present themselves as martyrs. We're talking.
We were, to give you a sense of the Fulton County case, we were watching some of the very first moments that are streamable over on the Facebook group earlier today, and they're just right now starting to deal with like Sidney Powell, for example. They haven't even. I mean, they're sharpening the fork and knife, but they haven't even started carving this turkey. Not a lot of folks who would be joining Trump's defense if they were required to stick by what they said 6 months ago. Not a lot of folks seem to think that Trump himself has a very strong case. Or at least they don't think that they have a strong case. Which tells you a hell of a lot about what Trump's case will be.
About a bail bondsman, a county election supervisor, a pastor, a publicist. These people are currently deciding whether it's worth it to go to prison for someone who A, does not care about them, B, wouldn't do the same for them, and most importantly, C, couldn't even do anything to help them. Remember, if we're talking about this Fulton County case, this is a state prosecution, meaning that even if Donald Trump were to win the presidency in 2024, he wouldn't be able to use his powers as president to pardon them, meaning they have nothing to gain by hitching themselves to the wagon that is Donald Trump, which is probably why they're getting restless fast. So I don't know the final number of co-defendants that'll be left by the time this trial actually kicks off, but I'm almost positive that it's not going to be 19. Consider, too, in the classified documents case, one witness already did flip, an IT aide at Mar-a-Lago named Yuscil Taveras, who oversaw the surveillance camera footage at the property. He had initially testified that he was unaware of any efforts to erase video surveillance footage, but after getting
You know, that guy we just watched the CNN segment on. I wasn't sure if we were going to do the Brian Tyler Cohen one. The CNN one was a little bit more robust, I thought, in terms of the actual info on who that guy is. In answer to your question, Pinkerbell, yes, I 100% did that on purpose. Because if there's such a thing as a suit nerd, your old pal Jake is one. Let's listen to Brian Tyler Cohen giving the breakdown, the very quick breakdown on Yuscil Taveras.
Had initially testified that he was unaware of any efforts to erase video surveillance footage, but after getting a new attorney who wasn't paid for by Donald Trump's PAC, he immediately retracted his false testimony and began cooperating with prosecutors to the detriment of Donald Trump. And to give you an idea of just how deep in the thick of it Taveras is, you might want to take a look at the indictment, which lays out a conversation between Taveras and Mar-a-Lago property manager Carlos de Oliveira. De Oliveira told Trump employee 4, that's Yuscil Taveras, that their conversation should remain between the two of them. De Oliveira Oliveira asked Trump employee 4 how many days the server retained footage. Trump employee 4 responded that he believed it was approximately 45 days. De Oliveira told Trump employee 4 that the boss wanted the server deleted. Trump employee 4 responded that he would not know how to do that and that he did not believe he would have the rights to do that.
Jesus.
Trump employee 4 told De Oliveira that De Oliveira would have to reach out to another employee who was a supervisor of security for Trump's business organization. De Oliveira then insisted to Trump employee 4 that the boss wanted the server deleted and asked, "What are we going to do?" That testimony is the result of one single person flipping, in case you were wondering the damage that a single witness could do to Donald Trump here. It's also a blinking red light for other co-defendants who opt not to flip, because now they're fighting alongside defendants whose case just got a whole lot weaker. Remember,
not a good day. Not a good day to be Donald Jamiroquai Trump. The anti-corporatists, 3 people are already flipping on him. There were 19 co-defendants and 31 unindicted co-conspirators. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mars Falcon, Pinkerbell, getting a hearty chuckle at me. Yeah, well earned. Mars Falcon. Variety of cases, not all Georgia, the anti-corporatists. True. But I mean, can we just take a minute to appreciate the fact that Trump crime built up like a cartoon hose. You know, when somebody puts like a stone or something on a hose in a cartoon, and it fills up on one end and then just shoots out all at once. 19 co-defendants, 31 unindicted co-conspirators. What is it? 91 charges. There's gonna be like trading cards of people that helped Trump commit crimes. The anti-corporatist, you know, that documents case is awesome and all, but the one that's going to be the most damn it, I can't say that word. I see the word affectate. I can't say it. I think is the Georgia one, because that's going to be televised. 100%. Yes. God damn you for giving me a 3-syllable thing, but yes. Christy Z, I hope every time Trump loses or gets indicted, an angel gets their wings. I just assumed that was happening. I just assumed they're tossing out wings like candy up in heaven. Public utility, even if convicted, most likely typically out on bail, pending appeal. Yeah. But it's important to almost more than Trump actually serving his sentence. Like, if he flees to another country or whatever, I'll be annoyed. But it's more important that we establish what we all agree is acceptable and what is not. And if we give a proper criminal punishment, if it's proved in court that Trump did what I think he did, and a lot of folks think he did, then we need to next demonstrate that we take such an act by such a person seriously. So I look forward to the conviction, and I hope that it's actually carried out. They actually do manage to put his ass in a cell. Pinkerbell, it was already pretty funny in court today. I mean, yeah, it was. Scott Ward, good to see you. Donald James, hello. Do you think we should focus on Marianne winning the primary, Jake? No. And here's why. 2 reasons. And in full disclosure, here's number 1. I'm not that thrilled with Marianne Williamson. I don't believe that she is an effective legislator. We have not been in a political era where that's been relevant, if I'm honest. Like 4 years ago, even 8 years ago, that wouldn't have mattered as much to me. It's starting to matter more because we have a suddenly educated voting populace and a voting population that is rapidly increasing how much it knows and how much it can do. And for that, I want a sly son of a gun in that particular office. I would much prefer Marianne Williamson as a senator or as secretary of this or that. But I in terms of actual candidates, I am less thrilled about her than I was about, say, Bernie. Now, that said, if I could just take history and throw it aside, take this, that, or the other thing and throw it aside, I would probably rather have Marianne Williamson in office than Joe Biden. I mean, perfect world, yeah. The other reason, though, that I don't think we should focus on Marianne Williamson is in the primaries. Not that we shouldn't have a robust primary, yeah, but why it shouldn't be a major place where we put our effort is because, to some degree, I want to work on training Democrats. And until recently, Democrats have taken the progressive vote for granted. I don't believe they do anymore. I think the work of Bernie Sanders has changed that quite a bit. Joe Biden, even though he is not a progressive person, as Sam Cedar says, the man's a cipher. He tends to do what people want. Joe Biden has had one of the most, this is not saying much, I know, but one of the most progressive presidencies ever in the United States. Now, if you start getting to FDR days, okay, well, progressive even meant something a little different then. But in the modern era, it would be hard to ask, or rather, no, it wouldn't be hard to ask more of him. It'd be very easy. But nonetheless, he's done a lot. And if he does a lot, and then he sweats Marianne Williamson, I think, should clarify, I don't know this, and we're going to have a call-in show tonight. I'd love to talk about it. I'd love to get some real-time feedback or realer-time feedback. But I think it will be interpreted as nothing we do will ever please these progressives, and so we should stop trying to please them at all and go back to trying to please what we delude ourselves into thinking is the center. So there's my long-winded answer on putting effort into Marianne Williamson. And I want to really clarify, again, it's not to say we shouldn't put any, but not the focus, in my opinion. Looney Tunes. Hail Sam Cedar. Public utility. Clinton, nope. Obama, nope. Yeah, that's my general feelings, but let's see if it's... yeah, public utility jumps up to by saying... or rather jumping up public utility, said, primary strategic planning, yeah, but ideally voters need ranked choice. Yes, I think so, exactly. I think that's the way to handle it. Oh, Letterhack's here. Hey, Letterhack. That dude. After you had talked about his book about the He-Man generation, I took an interest in Brian Box Brown. But that interview was fascinating. And do I still have it pinned? I do. Well, I should probably change the wording, but if you guys haven't checked out that interview with Matt Strackbine and Brian Box Brown, go have a look. It's one of the more fascinating things I've gotten to see on the internet recently. And I include my own interview on the Letterhack, although I did watch that about 30 times and I showed my mama. Letterhack, all my friends are here. Good to see y'all. Good to see you, sir. The anti-corporatists, they take black and Hispanic. Yes, they take the black and Hispanic vote for granted. Why wouldn't they take the progressive vote for granted? Because progressives' lives don't depend on it. As strange as that is to say. It's because progressives what is a progressive, not necessarily in reality, but in their minds, what a progressive is not physically in danger in their minds, and that's why they take them less for granted. Doesn't make it okay. It's just their reasoning as far as I can tell. Wicked. Oh, well, let me go up. Donald James. We don't have ranked choice voting, though. I wish we did. Yes, that's going to be... There's going to start being a column called Things We Will Be Pushing For If We Succeed in 2024. And amongst the tippity top is going to be ranked choice voting. A year ago, I was somewhat leery of the concept. These days, not at all. It's a good one. Letterhack and watch Adam Curtis BBC documentaries. Okay, noted. Christy Z, I learned about comics. Yeah, that was really interesting. Looney Tunes. I wonder if Trump will swear in court like drunk Rudy. Yes, he has. Yeah, we should just do a reading of the E. Jean Carroll transcript. I want to pull out the parts that'll keep you awake at night because you're too damn sad to sleep. But there are parts which, separated from the rest, are hilarious because you see Trump's frickin' rusty brain gears turning in real time, and you can see the moments he realizes that he's lost the case over and over and over again. It's phenomenal. All right, speaking of Sam Seder, I've got him on the brain because, and I'm going to go. I don't want to be artificial, but I feel obligated to bust his balls a little bit. So I'm going to bust his balls a little bit out of obligation. But just understand, I won't be any more harsh than frickin' Saul Seder was earlier today. No one is capable of that, so don't feel bad for him. Let's do this segment. Let's talk about what you can do. The other day on the Majority Report, the purpose of this show's existence was highlighted for me again. I don't like it when somebody asks a person who's talking about important stuff what they can do to help the situation, and there isn't an answer ready. Now, I say that before I take calls, and I promise you guys will have stuff eventually that I will just not be prepared for, and I won't do even a tenth of as good a job as Sam Seder did. But I have the advantage of getting to take several days after the call and research stuff and bring in answers. So here is a call that was on the Majority Report. First of all, I'd like you to have your heart broken with me while you hear about life for a trans person in the United States. But then I'm going to tell you what you can do to make it better. After I load the actual video, what are you doing, Jake? What are you doing? Here it is.
What input you guys would have on, like, what are average trans people supposed to do? Because it seems like we're just watching an entire community of people go through what minorities went through in Germany. And I know that sounds a little bit hyperbolic, but I've been saying that for like a year and a half now. And I was really struck whenever my partner and I went to the Holocaust Museum in Berlin 2 years ago. And what's happening to trans people is almost exactly what was happening to Jewish minorities, with othering people and labeling them and making them freaks and trying to segregate them, and they're dangerous to children and all this sorts of stuff. And it feels like everyone, with a few exceptions, is just standing by and watching. And I don't know what we're supposed to do, because you have people like your group that are like saying good things, but then at the same time, it's like everyone's just watching while you have people on TV telling everyone that trans people are perverts and child molesters, and you have people outlawing gender-affirming care, which is going to skyrocket suicide rates, and you have people rampaging around all over the world leading lies about how gender-affirming care is unscientific and hurts people. And it's like this slow-motion car wreck that everyone's just letting happen. And
let me tell you what you can't do. Nothing. Can't just sit by and let it happen. We learned this lesson. We could have been forgiven for inaction in the 1930s, for thinking, well, I don't know how to handle this, so I should do nothing. But doing nothing's not the answer. Can't have it. I'm going to let Sam and Emma give their thoughts, but I assure you there's reasonable action we can take. And there's, if you look in the description, don't have to do it now. I don't recommend you do it now. But if when you look in the description, you see a lot of things, you can just pick one. Just one. If you know a single trans person, for example, just keep tabs on them. They say they're going out to a club one night. That's what they say. Check in with them. Say, oh, great. Text me when you get back. Tell me how it went. Be a friend, but be present and be on the lookout. This is a targeted community. Let's hear how the Majority Report handled it, though. They did well.
And people are now leaving their homes because they can't get the medical care they need. And I think it's something like 17 states are now banning gender-affirming care. And I'm just like, I'm not trying to like make you guys my therapist or something. I'm just like, what are your guys' thoughts on like, what are we actually supposed to do politically? Because I don't have ideas.
Well, I mean, I don't have, frankly, I mean, a real answer for you at this moment. I mean, all I can tell you is that I do think there is a cap on how many states are going to do this. And I think that cap is immutable. I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there across the country. And I would say even in many of these states where they're passing this, where the majority of people do not have these intense feelings of hatred or suspicion. I think the majority of people just don't care one way or another. And there is a problem with that, like you say, like, what is that quote? Like, all that's needed for evil is for, good men to do nothing. But
I'm glad he said.
I do think that there is a limited number of states that are even capable of passing this stuff, which doesn't help you if you're living in one of those states. And I think that, there may be some opportunity with like federal law where like Medicaid or Medicare or which would sort of require trans care at the least to be provided. But in terms of this hostility, I think there's a cap on it. I hope there is, which isn't to say that people should just rely on that. I mean, I think, look, there are thousands of people listen to this show, and I can guarantee you that there are tens of thousands of people who hear your voice, and it breaks their heart.
Yeah, and I mean, there's other different ways of organizing, but GLAAD has on their transgender resources page has a whole bunch of different organizations. Now, how active they are in certain areas where they're most needed might be another issue, but yeah, I would look to that. I would look to if you're in one of those states, to at the very least
there are organizations, there are groups that are going to be allies. And, you know, at the very least, for your own sort of just like ability to deal.
Sense of community in that way.
Yes, that's going to help. I, you know, from a political standpoint, that it may help too. It's a longer project, but I continue to think, and I've seen absolutely no reason to believe otherwise, that because this issue, I don't think is ever going to have a national salience, at least in terms of like, you know, where it's going to help Republicans on a national scale. The wider out this goes, the more it hurts them, I think. And certainly.
So, I agree with Sam Cedars' take on the politics there. We know why trans people are being targeted. It's a way to get Republican votes. The Republican Party is a criminal organization. They are not above. They're not above endangering the lives of Americans. In fact, they're not above getting Americans killed in order to keep ruling over them. And because they found a way to get us to kill each other, they don't have to. They don't have to face legal consequences. But it doesn't work. It gives them something to talk about still, and so they're still using it to churn up their base, but they've already learned just churning up their base isn't enough. So if I am lucky enough to get this message to that very caller or someone who was having the same thoughts as that caller, be they trans or otherwise, I've had those thoughts myself, that we can't simply sit around and hope. And that we're allowing people to target others, and that needs to stop. Take some solace from what Sam Cedar said, because I agree with it. But there is something you can do right now, and in fact, there is a hell of a lot between now and 2024 that you can do for yourself, to keep yourself safe, to keep other people that are alive here and now safe, and to keep future generations safe. Let's go down the list. For immediate effects, for something that's going to have an immediate effect, I would like to introduce you to Mercury Stardust. She's I believe, a trans YouTuber who was going through something very similar recently. And let's start with being safe in your own home. It's not enough. You shouldn't have to just stay at your home all day. That's insane. But you got to start somewhere. So let's start in the home. What can you do to be safer in your home from the lone wolf terrorists, from the bigots who are inspired by Fox and the Republican Party?
I'm getting a lot more threats lately. I'm going to do the whole video on safety and how you can protect yourself in your apartment or when you're traveling. And let's go. This is called an analog. How this works is that you place it inside the strike plate that's attached to your door frame, and then you can just close your door like normal, okay? Now this little slidey bit right here goes right through the hole, and then you push the red part up against the door and you push down. And now it can't open the door, okay? And this is what it looks like on the other side. I can turn the knob and try to push, and it ain't going. The reason why this works is because the door is pressing up against that little red thing that we push down on the door, and the metal bit right here is inside the strike plate. So it's using what's inside the frame to prevent it from opening. And to take it out, you just reverse the steps. You pull this up like this, you pop it out of the hole, you open the door, and you take it right out of the strike plate, and you're good to go. And if you have a sliding glass door that looks like this, you can take a handle like a broomstick handle or a doll, cut it to size by using a hacksaw, and then just put it right in a crevice like this, and it's going to prevent that door from opening. Neither of these are going to work all the time, but there's something, and in a world of a lot of uncertainties, I'd rather have something than... Since I've been getting a lot more threats.
You know what the saddest part of that video is to me? Since I've been getting, she starts, since I've been getting a lot more threats lately. It's not that she never got threats. She's just been getting a lot more lately. God damn it. We're gonna handle this. But first, yes, basic home security stuff as presented by Mercury Stardust. It's a great start. Just make sure that your home is a safe place for you. Step 2, when you go out and about, make sure you have a network of allies. If you can't, you should not have an escort when you go out. I acknowledge that. But if you can go out with friends, go out with friends. Be a presence in the community. Be around people that know you and have met you before, have shaken your hand. Whether you're a man or a woman, if you're trans, have a community. Make sure that you are doing the same for others. Check in with people when they go out. Make sure nobody is out of touch with their allies, who will help keep an eye out for danger. And it doesn't just mean danger in the immediate. The reason you have a group of allies is so that if somebody has a scary experience with someone else, like, say, somebody who's confused about how they feel about trans people and is acting erratically, you can spare yourself the experience of dealing with that person if your friend can touch you on the arm and say, no, I talked to them yesterday. Don't talk to that person. That will help. Then in the short term, to change this situation so that you don't have to be defensive, so we can go on the offense. Write your local news stations and insist they challenge the lies told by stochastic terrorists like Ron DeSantis and Matt Walsh. If you live in any state in the United States, there is a Republican in your state who has said anti-trans nonsense. They have been interviewed by local news stations who they just aren't prepared for the world they're in right now. But you can change that. Help them be prepared. Make sure that you insist that they challenge the lies told by these people. Things that you'll know but they won't and they'll take for granted. Like how many people actually get X surgery, or how many people are on hormone treatments, or this, that, the other thing. Make sure your local news is not letting misinformation spread. Then, link in the description, tell your representatives, this is still in the short term, you want them to submit legislation that will criminalize stochastic terrorism. I realize that at one point you could have made the argument that, we'll never be able to really put any laws about this without silencing free speech. But what is the standard example people go to? Fire in a movie theater. There are some things you can say which do not fall under free speech. They fall under speaking as part of a crime. If, for example, you're on television and you say something that you know is untrue and you know will get people physically harmed, you should be legally liable for it. I would recommend you write your representative using the link in the description for Common Cause to tell them you want protections written into law. And then in the long term, to protect the children, to protect whoever has to endure this world next. Vote in primaries so that we have politicians on the ballot who will prioritize the safety of the trans community instead of just paying lip service. I say this to the black folks too. I say this to the people who only think of themselves as progressives. I say this to the gay folks. I say this to the people who don't like paying all of the taxes that rich people are supposed to pay. Vote in the primaries, because that's how we avoid getting just the lip service. When people are afraid that they will actually lose a seat to the base, that's when you start getting much stronger representation. I realize These are imperfect solutions. I'm sorry that we don't live in a time of decency, but we're going to make it one. You have, I hope you understand, many more times, people that like you for being brave enough to call into such a show and do not care what your gender is or how you got there than you do people who spend all day thinking about how they can make your life worse. And if it's any consolation at all, you are a more complete person than they are. Your identity does not rely on anybody else. And their identity as a bigot is reliant on you. So you will continue to win by existing. Let's win together. Wireless mic. Yelling fire in a theater is not actually illegal, but if it causes a panic and people get hurt as a result, you will be held liable. Boom, exactly. Pinkerbell, being a safe person is really important. Yes. Christy Z, you can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean you can't be held accountable. Exactly. If what you said caused some type of chaos, there is a difference they don't want to see. Yes. Being a safe person for others, Pinkerbell clarifies. Yeah. Yeah, good point. I do think my the way I initially read that, though, is also true. If you yourself are being a safe person, let's think of it like a safe swimmer, then the lifeguard has to save less people. But yes, also be the lifeguard if you can, for God's sake. Double down on that, and when we make everybody's job of being decent easier. Wireless mic. I would have to prove that you intended the stampede to happen, which is here's the thing about Wireless Mike's comment regarding fire in the theater. Whether or not actually yelling fire is illegal is besides the point. There's liability associated with the consequences of your speech. That's the point of that. So you are allowed to say what you want, and yeah, you're allowed to lie about trans folks if you want, but we need to start enforcing laws, or specifically writing out laws that specify that this is a kind of hate crime which is happening now in our time. There's intentionality behind it. At the very least, there's what is known as callous disregard involved. The people saying these things understand that they're getting people killed. They've been told multiple times, and if they don't understand it, well, it's the price of their stupidity is going to be a jail cell then. The price of their willful ignorance is going to be that we acknowledge that it's better to have them in a jail cell than an innocent in a coffin. Hey, Domenico, good to see you. Wicked Foxy Dragon, yes, but they have to prove that you yelled something with the intent to cause a stampede. Fair. And I would say what they have to prove is that you didn't care. You knew a stampede was possible and you didn't care. Mars Falcon, Rex Trek is never late. Is never late. He arrives precisely when he means to, like Gandalf. That's true. Pinkerbell, I'm out of loop on that one. My dogs are goth. Sounds like you're in the country. I'm gonna stop reading halfway through conversations. Donald James X, and yes, you're 100%, but they have a thing called plausible deniability. Yeah, I acknowledge we might have to write legislation specifically for this, but here in my life experience, here's a good rule of thumb when it comes to the law. If something seems obscene and disruptive and dangerous, you can write down reasonably that behavior carries with it a criminal punishment. And if we have to be very sensitive about, well, First Amendment, this and that, good, then let's be very sensitive. Let's do it very carefully. But let's, by all means, still make the legislation. If you're wondering what would those exact words be, that is why it's your representative's problem. Protections for trans people. You don't have to write the law for them. You have to say it must be made illegal for Matt Walsh, after having been corrected several times about how many people are getting top surgery, let's say, before they're 18. After having been corrected many times, it needs to be made. There needs to be a criminal liability associated with what he's done. Accessory to murder, maybe that's the word for it. Maybe it's just malicious, what do they call it? Malicious disregard for yada, yada, yada. Being an irresponsible prick in front of a camera, in other words. Time for change. Standards that a civil litigation has to meet is much lower. You don't have the same protections you do in criminal trials. That's fair. That's fair. But I think this should be criminal. Civil litigation means it's on the victim to go find their own justice, and I choose. I don't want to live in a society that allows my countrymen to be attacked for sport. So I tell my representatives, put this legislation up, and my primary vote will be affected by what you do, and that is a fact. Public utility need to regulate the people's commons. The 20th and 21st century commons is owned by corporations. Interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. Donald James X. I'm also talking about people like Matt Walsh. We know his intent, but he has plausible deniability. I don't think he does. Interestingly, I don't think he does. In fact, just based on the interviews he's done, I'm aware that he has been corrected on information he continues to say. So he already knows that he's lying. But beyond that, if you claim to be an expert about something, then you are, at a minimum, you're claiming to know what you're talking about. And if the things he talks about are consistently wrong, boy, you've rather maliciously lied. So if your argument is that, or if somebody's, I'm putting you in a hot seat for no reason. If somebody's argument is that we don't currently have laws which can be applied, then then write new laws. I mean, do we think this behavior is acceptable? Do we think it's acceptable that trans people are getting attacked, spurred on by people who are lying, and I've been told to their face that they're getting people killed? I don't think we think that's okay, so we write the laws. But if the laws already exist, great, enforce them. Why is Tucker Carlson not in prison right now for what he has done? Why is Matt Walsh not? I don't think his deniability is plausible, in other words. I would want to see that litigated in criminal court. But as we are discussing viewer comments, I'd like to do some viewer comments from a recent stream. When we talked about this right chow, let me actually record this. viewer comments from a recent stream when we talked about Enrique Tarrio getting 22 years. I think I was pretty celebratory over that. And I've since changed my mind, and not in the way you might think is coming after I read these comments. This was from Glenn Desert Witch, who, Glenn Desert Witch. I can't speak English so good. I'm just going to read the comment, though. I personally would prefer it if we didn't celebrate this, though. 22 years is a lot of time. Yes, it is comparable to what other people would get in this country, but I honestly don't think anyone deserves to spend this much time in jail. And I think it's important to note that Tarrio took over the Proud Boys just before all the real started happening. McGinnis made him his patsy. Now, yes, he was a willing participant. I'm not saying he is innocent, but I do find it distasteful that a brown man is paying the highest price for this so far. That's a fair point. And with that in mind, it's why I was kind of okay with the sentence given. But I hadn't really considered the fact that the prosecution asked for even more. Douglas Connors from the True North Eager Beaver podcast put in this comment. Still not enough. DOJ should appeal this one too for a lengthier sentence. I'm gonna, Glenn, I'm gonna hurt your feelings a little bit here, in that I think I disagree with you. First of all, I think we should celebrate it, because I don't in this moment I don't feel committed to it. How about that? Earlier, I thought we should celebrate it, because even though he's more on the side of the muscle, he's still leadership. He's the leader of the muscle, but he's leadership. And ultimately, the story that we are living through now is one where people are learning to hold the orchestrators accountable in this era of mass communication. And that's good. As to his sentence, I'm with you on 2 points. I don't think that 22 years is the sort of time people should be spending in prison for almost anything. Almost anything. There are, of course, exceptions, but almost anything. And I really don't like that the biggest sentence this far went to a brown man. And I understand there's an inherent bigotry in that statement, except that this country is notorious for doing specifically that thing, treating people of color in any scenario more harshly than everybody else. Even if you're white passing, you get treated better than somebody it could be your literal brother who just came out a little bit darker. And the white passing person gets treated better. It's insane. I don't like that. But I'm with Douglas Connors. After having mulled it over for a while, here's why. Prosecution asked for a stiffer sentence than they got. What are we saying to the country, to the world, when we give a lighter sentence than the prosecution asked for? We are defining how bad the version of the crime presented is considered to be. I don't know that it can get worse than what Tarrio did. I don't know that it can get worse. He was part of a coup. He was going to harm Americans in that coup. That was the plan. He thought he'd be able to do it legally in the next government. the one that was going to be set up under Trump. He thought he'd be deputized by the winners of the coup. And that's the only thing that stopped him from putting a gun in a peaceful American's face and pulling the trigger. I think you got to throw the book at him. I do disagree with Douglas in that I don't think it should be retried. We simply don't have the time. Like, if should be, I suppose, being a very, doing a lot of work there. The word should. Doing a lot of work. In a perfect world, it should be. In this one, it shouldn't be. It's a hefty sentence. It allows us to say, all right, look, the leader of the muscle got the harshest sentence. I'm glad he got a harsher sentence because he was the leader in comparison to his fellows. I'm bummed out that it was a brown man. I think the fact that it was a brown man had something to do with that. However, even though I think the general brutality of this country needs to be toned way the hell down, I don't think that anybody involved with an attempted coup should be where we start with that, because it won't be taken that way. It won't result. If we're kinder to these folks, it won't result in kindness down the line. It's like the trickle-down economics of kindness. If you give money to the richest person, they don't give you more money. They don't spend that capital. They're the richest person because they save it. Well, if you give judicial mercy to people who have had judicial immunity because of the crowds they run in, they're not going to turn around and say, well, I'm going to really think about how I've been treating other people now. They're going to say, see, I knew I was the prince of this country. Those are just my thoughts. I want to hear yours, though. We're doing a call-in show. I'm already nervous. New technology gets me that way. It gets me excited, too. We're going to do a call-in show next. Thank you for joining us on the live show today. Let's read a few more comments, though. Domenico, what you can do. Yes, Jake. Write good new laws. Hell yeah. Mars Falcon, Murica, wallows in 17... fudge. That just refreshed. Groove Dragon going back to lurking. Good to see you, Groove Dragon. Let me see what you said, though. I want to read it. Oh, I just lost. I just lost my place. All right. I'm going to read instead from Wireless Mike. In my opinion, violent people who commit violent crimes belong behind bars. Unless it's self-defense, violence is just unacceptable. I do agree with you. Generally speaking, it's just the amount of time behind bars that I think needs to change. I don't think we gain anything after a certain amount of time. I don't think that makes the person less likely to come out and do violence again. But I'm getting lost in the weeds. It was a good point in and of itself. It doesn't need me hanging lights on it. Looney Tunes, take a breath, Jake. Ain't over, folks. Oh, I never can. I get all wound up. I get hot. Christy Z, good energy plants a good seed. Good point. Kindness is passed on. Equally bad energy, bad seed. Hatred is passed on. Just decide to be kind. Here's my issue with that. We assume that kindness will be interpreted as kindness, and often on the left. And I think it rarely is. So I think it's fine to be kind. It's good to be kind. It's necessary to make kindness a priority. But sometimes kindness doesn't take the form that we're used to seeing it in. I genuinely believe the kindest thing you can do for Donald Trump is to hold him accountable. He's eyeballing 80, and he's yet to start living a real adult life because he hasn't had boundaries in his whole life. And I think they're being kind to somebody, for example, who makes a hobby out of hunting down trans folks. That's being cruel to trans folks. And you can turn on the kindness the second the person changes their behavior, but not a second before, in my opinion. Christy Z, there it is. To the deserving, I should have clarified. Fair enough. Domenico, kindness is strength. Yes. Oh. Donald James, I believe in self-defense. I don't believe in initiating violence. Perfectly put. Perfectly put. Well, folks, I want to set up this call-in show and try it. We're going to be talking about whatever you want. We're going to ask that you have one question or comment ready, and we're just going to go from there. We can, of course, though, talk about what we've been doing today. It looks like we got a hell of a good conversation started. I will see you in the next one. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake.